Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I'm Lewis Cipher, and this is the Devil's Advocate Debate Club. Welcome back. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about socialism, some of its inherent flaws, and one possible solution for the whole mess. Recently, a political commentator that I listened to said something which I'm sure has been said before. But Carl Benjamin recently mentioned that socialism reduces people to the lowest common denominator, which got me thinking, well, why would he say that? It's something that I had always kind of known to be true about the system, but had thought about in a more complex light. This was put quite simply and concisely, but rang no less true because of it. See, in socialism, everyone is given an equal amount by the government for the work that they produce, and then is given a theoretically evened out workload to make things fair and equal for all people. It sounds great, doesn't it? The problem is that people have different strengths and weaknesses. There are reasons why we should all treat each other equally in a moral sense, but I mean, a tall person has a different set of strengths than a short person. One can get into a lot more places, the other can reach a lot more places. This doesn't make one better than the other, but we are different. And diversity is our strength as a species. Now, I don't mean diversity of color or gender. I mean diversity of ability. Something which transcends race or sex as we know it for the most part. Oh, there are averages, but in socialism, everyone gets the same out of the system, so it's only fair and natural for the system to be set up for everyone to put the same amount into it. Now, this means that everyone can only put in as much as the slowest worker. So on a production line, if everyone is putting in the same amount, whoever is the slowest will be the one that they have to set their pace off of. This leads to, much quicker workers who in a capitalist system might be promoted or paid better or given bonuses for working at double or triple the speed of their coworkers. This would cause them to either work much harder than necessary for the same pay, or to, more likely than not, for most people, match the pace of their slower workers, since they're all getting paid the same anyway. This is a problem with purely hourly wage-based jobs that have no bonuses or incentives, such as possible promotions. So it's not something that is unique to socialism. Brutus, come on! Sorry. But it is something that is inherent to it as a system, unlike with capitalism. Now, I know in socialism, sometimes there's the social credit system where people who work more earn credits that can be traded for goods and services, but that's just mixing capitalism into your socialism to fix one of its core issues. And so, what are the possible solutions for socialism? Well, we can eliminate the lowest common denominator and, basically, I don't know. I would never suggest that we wipe out half the workforce so that only the faster half remain, but if we're trying to find a way for socialism to function without it crippling a nation's productivity and economy and ability to, innovate, then that's probably what it looks like, other than a solution I'll get to here in a little bit. And so this means that anyone who believes strongly in capitalism or one of the competing theories other than anarchy, which is just ridiculous, really, you have nothing to fear from socialism, because it will always either turn in on itself, doing half the work for you by purging whoever's in charge of that particular socialist movement sees as undesirable, aka the Nazi socialists, or it will fail in upon itself as everything is being run at or as if by the worst people for any given job, as everyone else matches the lowest common denominator, or at best the median. Mao Zedong. Though that was a lot more, both of those situations were clearly a lot more complicated and had a lot more variables than just this one, but it's certainly something to consider when looking at the basically near inevitable collapse of socialism, as it is a untenable and weak system of government, which might be able to gain some political power, but will never be a force that's a threat to the world, other than perhaps with the global political movement. But that's a video for another day. So, what is the real solution for socialism? I said that I had a saving grace, and here it is. In a prior video, I talked about the concept of genetically altering fetuses in the womb to create humans of different calibers. I talked about curing different diseases, be they mental or physical, and also at one point in the video about creating a... Brutus, come on! Come on, Brutus! I don't know why my stupid dog's lagging behind. It's funny, I had planned to have him on camera for most of this video, because he'd been running up ahead and had been up on the path and been having fun, and pretty much as soon as I turned on the camera, he's been lagging about, almost out of sight behind me. Anyway, though, so I'd talked about creating a standardized human race and the pros and cons of this, making everyone approximately the same height and build, and, potentially even standardizing some gender traits to make the sexes more alike. This has a lot of advantages when it comes to efficiency of producing things for these people and for how they use them. But it has a lot of disadvantages when it comes to the strength and diversity of both, thought and ability that I talked about before. But maybe I found a place for them in socialism. See, in socialism, if everyone had the same basic, at least physical abilities, and were, say, trained in a, early government schooling program from infancy forward, I'm not suggesting we do this, but if we did, this might be one of the most efficient and productive ways that a section of the human race could exist. I mean, there is no lowest common denominator. If everyone was born and raised basically the same way, everyone should have close enough to the same abilities that the production line would run smoothly. There would be no one who needs to be purged and no one who's slowing themselves down because they were getting paid the same as people doing less work than them. They're all capable of the same work. Brutus! Come on. So, we could have a standardized socialist colony as an experiment. Now, this is something that I think could only happen in a capitalist society. I don't know that you could have a capitalist system as a test inside a socialist system without it ending up just becoming a capitalist system by the very nature of how the two work. However, this would be a way for socialism to be tested within a capitalist system, by sectioning off a, city or area for a group of people to have standardized training. Now, these would be, I assume, unwanted babies, mothers who don't want to have an abortion but don't want to keep the child could volunteer for the experiment. If we were to do something like this, give up their babies into government training and control from an immediate age onward, and, see what happens if we put standardized human beings into a socialist society. It might be the only place where they wouldn't be damaging to humans' diversity of strength and diversity, and it might be the only place for a socialist society to actually function with a standardized and, they would be human, but they certainly would be, I'm sure at first, called inhuman by many, because they would be very, very different than us, the people who socialism could work for. They would be different enough that aliens visiting our planet, if they didn't look at our genetics, might think that we were two different species. But, humans are only capable of this because of our power over genetics, because our diversity has led us to do amazing things. And that diversity is something that systemically, by necessity, must be quelled in a socialist or communist society. I don't bring up my background as a brony that often in these videos, but for anyone who thinks that My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is a children's show, or for anyone who thinks that giving up your special talents to be equal with everyone in the name of communism or socialism is a good idea, go watch the first couple episodes of Season 5 of MLP Friendship is Magic, where, and I kid you not, the main 6 ponies are held in a socialist concentration reprogramming camp, cupboard, I suppose, where their special talents are stripped from them so that they can be equal and happy, smiling members of society just like the rest of the ponies in that town. It's absolutely terrifying, and children watch it, and it is a fair representation of one of the only ways that socialism could potentially work, with some horrors behind it, if we're not going down the genetic engineering route. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, I'm your host, Cipher. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching the Devil's Advocate Debate Club.